Courtroom cameras captured the moment when Deborah Jenkins, a 320-pound woman who had spent 15 years hiding behind a victim persona, made the mistake of calling Judge Judy rude to her face. What happened over the next 12 minutes became one of the most shared courtroom meltdowns of 2024, viewed more than 65 million times, and exposed a scheme so calculated and manipulative that it influenced changes to disability fraud laws in 17 states. What no one expected was that Judge Judy had security footage proving Deborah had been lying for more than a decade. When she revealed it, Deborah's world didn't simply fall apart. She found herself in a $20,000 disaster she never saw coming. Before showing the moment Deborah's lies unraveled, the narrator encourages viewers to like, subscribe, and comment, promising the most satisfying takedown of a self-styled victim ever caught on camera. The story introduces Deborah Jenkins walking into Judge Judy's courtroom with the confidence of someone who had spent 15 years manipulating the system. At 52 years old and 320 pounds, she had perfected the use of her size as both a shield and a weapon against anyone who questioned her claims. She wore oversized clothing chosen to emphasize her size, and her handicapped parking placard hung from her purse like a badge of legitimacy. She had crafted an entire identity around being a victim of society's prejudice and knew exactly how to profit from that narrative. Her command of the victim playbook made her especially formidable. For 15 years, she collected disability checks without working a single day. Her claims fibromyalgia, chronic back pain, severe knee issues were intentionally vague and difficult to disprove. She insisted she couldn't walk more than 10 feet without intense pain. Several doctors had been persuaded to support her claims through rehearsed symptoms and emotional performances. She knew precisely how to appear helpless and how to make anyone who doubted her seem heartless. But her real strategy extended beyond disability payments. She used her alleged condition as a weapon in her community and became known for playing the victim card in every situation. If a restaurant booth was too small, it became a discrimination complaint. If a store lacked a mobility scooter, she sent a threatening letter from her lawyer. If a neighbor objected to her taking up to handicap spaces, she accused them of harassment and emotional distress. Throughout 15 years, she filed 14 lawsuits, 7 of which were settled out of court because small businesses and ordinary people found it cheaper to pay than to fight. She had turned victimhood into a 6-figure operation, collecting over 10 million in disability payments and settlements, while living in ways that contradicted every limitation she claimed. Deborah's unshakable belief that she was always the true victim made her particularly unbearable. She surrounded herself with online communities where professional victims encouraged one another and traded strategies on maximizing disability benefits and legal settlements. She had learned to use the language of social justice and body positivity, turning genuine movements into shields that protected her from scrutiny. Anyone who questioned her was instantly labeled fatphobic, ableist, or discriminatory. She had perfected the ability to make herself untouchable through accusations designed to make reasonable people back away rather than be branded bigots. Her confidence as she walked into Judge Judy's courtroom that morning was absolute. She had studied daytime court shows, practiced her performance in the mirror, and prepared a stack of medical documents, each one carefully selected to support her story without being specific enough to be easily disproven. She assumed Judge Judy, like every authority figure she had ever encountered, would be too intimidated to challenge someone claiming disability and discrimination. She believed her weight and her victim status made her immune to serious questioning. She had no idea she was about to face the one person in America who didn't care about political correctness, didn't fear accusations of bias, and had already spent the previous night reviewing every lie in her paperwork. Deborah Jenkins was about to learn that Judge Judy's courtroom operated on truth, not manipulation, and the lesson would cost her everything. Across the room, Gerald Thompson sat in the plaintiff's chair, looking exhausted and defeated. At 68 years old, the small gym owner had spent 3 decades building his business from nothing, surviving economic downturns, competition from large gym chains, and the crushing financial blow of COVID-19 lockdowns that had wiped out 40% of his membership. His gym wasn't fancy or expensive, just a community space where ordinary people stayed healthy. Seniors attended water aerobics, and working parents squeezed in morning workouts before their shifts. Gerald had invested his life, savings, and 30 years of 70-hour work weeks into that gym. And now, Deborah Jenkins was trying to destroy it with a lawsuit demanding $20,000 for an injury he knew couldn't have happened. It's the way she claimed Dot from Deborah's perspective. The case seemed simple. She had joined Gerald's gym 3 months earlier, claiming special medical needs and asking for a discounted membership due to her health conditions. Wanting to help and treat her fairly, Gerald agreed. He showed her all the accessible equipment, explained how to use everything safely, and had her sign the same medical waiver required of every member, acknowledging her existing conditions and accepting responsibility for using the equipment properly. For the first few months, everything appeared normal. Deborah visited regularly, used the machines, and even seemed to be making progress. Then everything changed. One morning, she filed a formal complaint claiming she had severely injured herself on the gym equipment due to what she described as inadequate accommodations for someone with her disabilities. She stated that the equipment was not designed for someone with her needs, that the gym had failed to offer proper safety measures, and that Gerald's staff dismissed her concerns when she reported feeling pain. She demanded $20,000 to cover medical bills, ongoing treatment, pain and suffering, and emotional distress. When Gerald tried to speak with her about the situation, she escalated immediately. She threatened to report his gym to the health department, vowed to overwhelm social media with negative reviews, and made it clear she had a lawyer ready to make his life difficult. When Gerald refused to simply pay her, she filed the lawsuit. Gerald had already spent $8,000 in legal fees just to bring the case before Judge Judy, money he didn't have, pulled from his retirement savings, representing months of trying to keep his gym alive while defending himself against what he believed was a baseless claim. He brought his evidence meticulously organized. The signed medical waiver acknowledging her pre-existing conditions, the membership agreement, and documentation showing that his gym met and even exceeded all accessibility standards. But the most important piece was something he had trouble believing himself: security footage from the gym that told a completely different story from the one Deborah had presented. He had watched the videos countless times, growing angrier with each viewing at how boldly she was lying. Yet he kept that anger in check, knowing that in Judge Judy's courtroom, facts mattered far more than emotions. Judge Judy began the proceedings with her usual directness. "Ms. Jenkins, you're suing Mr. Thompson for $20,000, claiming his gym equipment injured you due to inadequate accommodations for your disabilities. Tell me exactly what happened," was a simple, routine question one Judge Judy had asked thousands of times. But Deborah's response immediately signaled that this case would be different. Instead of answering directly, she launched into a dramatic performance that would make even an amateur actor cringe. "Your Honor," she began, her voice heavy with practiced emotion, "I went to Mr. Thompson's gym because my doctor said gentle exercise might help me manage my conditions. I've struggled my entire life with severe physical limitations that most people could never understand. I live with chronic pain every single day. When I joined Mr. Thompson's gym, I clearly explained my medical needs. I told him about my fibromyalgia, my chronic back pain, my severe knee issues that make walking more than a few feet absolutely excruciating. I was completely honest about my limitations. And at first, Mr. Thompson seemed understanding, but the equipment in his gym was simply not designed for someone with my needs. The machines were too high, too awkward, too difficult for a person with my level of disability to use safely. But Deborah didn't stop at describing the situation. She began adding commentary meant to cast herself as the victim and Gerald as the negligent villain, as anyone with common sense would understand. She said with an exaggerated sigh, "People with disabilities require special accommodations. We can't just use standard equipment like able-bodied people." Obviously, Mr. Thompson either didn't understand that or didn't care enough to properly accommodate someone like me. Judge Judy's eyebrows lifted slightly, an early signal. Seasoned viewers recognized as an omen of trouble, but Deborah, blinded by her own confidence and years of getting away with similar tactics, didn't notice. She pressed on, her voice growing increasingly condescending. 3 months into my membership, I was using one of the exercise machines when I felt a sharp pain in my back and knees. The pain was so severe that I could barely move. I reported it to the staff immediately, but they brushed me off. They acted like I was exaggerating, like my pain didn't matter. That kind of treatment, Your Honor, is exactly the kind of discrimination people with disabilities face every single day. She paused dramatically before adding, "With clear bitterness, this injury has made my already difficult life even more unbearable. I deserve compensation for what Mr. Thompson's negligence has done to me." Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her expression composed but her eyes sharp. "Ms. Jenkins," she said, her tone taking on the familiar edge that regular viewers recognized as the calm before the storm. "You claim you can barely walk more than 10 feet without severe pain? You say your disabilities prevent normal physical activity. So tell me, how exactly did you get to the gym 3 times a week for 3 months? Deborah answered instantly, with the confidence of someone who had delivered the same speech countless times. "Your Honor, don't think you understand how insensitive that question is. People with disabilities must push through pain every single day just to function in a world that isn't designed for us. I use adaptive equipment. I take multiple breaks. I manage my pain with medication. And frankly, it's nobody's business how I navigate daily life with these conditions." The condescension in her tone made the audience shift uncomfortably. Judge Judy's expression hardened just slightly. "I see. So tell me about this adaptive equipment and the accommodations you needed. What exactly did Mr. Thompson's gym fail to provide?" Deborah launched into another polished explanation. "Your Honor, as anyone who understands disability would know, proper accommodations aren't just about having equipment available. It's about having equipment that is actually accessible," she insisted. "His machines were too high for someone with my mobility limitations. The layout of the gym required far too much walking between stations. There was no staff member assigned specifically to help people with disabilities. The entire facility showed a complete lack of understanding about what someone like me needs." Judge Judy let her continue, jotting down notes and asking occasional sharp questions, each of which Deborah answered with growing arrogance. When Judge Judy requested her medical documentation, Deborah pulled out a thick folder and began describing each paper with the attitude of a teacher lecturing a student. At one point, she added condescendingly, "Obviously, you've never struggled with weight issues, Judge. Otherwise, you'd understand why standard gym equipment isn't suitable for larger bodies. It's basic physics," the audience murmured, their discomfort rising. But Deborah interpreted the reaction as support rather than disapproval. Gerald Thompson sat silently, jaw tight, watching her performance with barely restrained frustration. His lawyer had urged him to remain calm and let Judge Judy take the lead. But watching Deborah lie so confidently about what happened in his gym was almost unbearable. He knew the truth. He had the security footage. Yet her polished victim routine made him understand why so many others had simply paid her to go away. She was good at this, alarmingly good. Judge Judy pressed on, probing deeper into the cracks of Deborah's narrative. "Ms. Jenkins," she said, "you claim this injury occurred 3 months into your membership. Why didn't you file an incident report the day it happened?" Deborah immediately grew defensive. "Your Honor, I was in shock. I was in pain. I could barely think. I trusted Mr. Thompson to do the right thing when I told his staff. I didn't realize I'd need to document every detail because he would later deny it happened." Her voice rose slightly, adopting a wounded tone. This is exactly what people with disabilities face all the time. We're not believed. We're questioned. We're treated like we're making things up. Judge Judy's next question sliced through the emotion. "Ms. Jenkins, in the past 15 years, how many lawsuits have you filed?" The courtroom went still. Deborah's confident expression faltered before she quickly masked it. "Your Honor, I don't see how that's relevant. I'm the victim here. My history shouldn't matter when we're discussing Mr. Thompson's negligence." Judge Judy's voice sharpened. "Answer the question, Ms. Jenkins. How many lawsuits have you filed in the past 15 years? Deborah shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "I've filed several complaints, yes. When you live with disabilities, you experience discrimination constantly. I've had to fight for my rights many times. But that doesn't mean this case isn't legitimate." Judge Judy pulled out a document from her folder. "According to my research, Ms. Jenkins, you filed 14 lawsuits in 15 years. 7 were settled out of court. Is that correct?" Color rose in Deborah's cheeks. "Those cases were legitimate," she snapped, her composure cracking. "Just because people settled doesn't mean I was wrong. It means they knew they discriminated against me and wanted to avoid the publicity." Judge Judy remained expressionless, but her voice carried unmistakable steel. "And you've been collecting disability payments for 15 years, claiming you cannot work due to severe physical limitations. Is that correct?" Judge Judy asked. Deborah's voice rose, defensive and sharp. "Yes, Your Honor, because I genuinely cannot work. I have documented medical conditions that prevent me from maintaining employment. I don't appreciate the implication that I'm cheating the system. I've dealt with prejudice my entire life because of my weight and disabilities. And this line of questioning is more of the same discrimination, Judge." Judy leaned back in her chair, unmistakable. Sign to longtime viewers that she was preparing to dismantle the story in front of her, Ms. Jenkins. "I'm trying to understand your daily activities, considering your claimed limitations. You say you can barely walk 10 feet without severe pain. You say physical activity is essentially impossible for you. Yet you manage to go to the gym regularly for 3 months. How does that work?" Deborah's composure snapped. Her voice rose almost to a shout. "Your Honor, you're being incredibly rude. You're supposed to be impartial, but you're clearly biased against me because of my size. This is exactly the fat-shaming and ableist discrimination people like me face daily. Instead of focusing on Mr. Thompson's negligence, you're attacking me. This isn't just a sits harassment." The courtroom went silent. The audience seemed to hold its breath. Gerald's eyes widened. He recognized instantly that she had just crossed a line she couldn't come back from. Judge Judy's expression hardened into a glare that had reduced seasoned attorneys to tears. The temperature in the room seemed to drop when she finally spoke. Her voice was low and controlled, every word deliberate. "Rude. You think I'm being rude, Ms. Jenkins? Let me explain rude. Rude is coming into my courtroom with a briefcase full of lies. Rude is trying to destroy a man's business with fraud. But before we discuss what's truly rude here, let's talk about some very interesting security footage Mr. Thompson provided, shall we? The shift in the courtroom was instant and electric. Deborah's face, red with indignation moments earlier, suddenly drained of color. Her shoulders fell as the phrase security footage sank in. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Judge Judy didn't wait. She gestured toward her bailiff. And the courtroom monitors flickered to life. "Ms. Jenkins," she said, her tone as sharp as a blade. "You testified under oath that you can barely walk 10 feet without severe pain. You claim you require handicapped parking because physical activity is impossible for you. You state that gym equipment injured you because you lack the mobility to use standard machines safely." She continued, "Well, Mr. Thompson's gym has 24-hour security cameras. And I spent last night watching every minute of your 3 months of membership. And what I saw was fascinating." The first clip appeared on the screen. It was from Deborah's first week at the gym. The timestamp showed early morning. There she was, easily recognizable, walking into the gym with no visible struggle. No limping, no hesitation, no signs of distress. She moved straight to the elliptical machine. The same equipment she now claimed was impossible for someone with her limitations. And used it continuously for 45 minutes. The footage showed her moving at a steady, comfortable pace, no grimacing, no pauses to rest. No hint of the severe pain or limitations she had described under oath. The courtroom audience let out a collective gasp. Deborah's hands tightened around the defendant's table until her knuckles turned white. But Judge Judy was far from finished. The next clip appeared, taken during her 4th week of membership. Deborah was using a treadmill, not shuffling slowly the way someone with serious mobility issues might, but actually jogging in intervals. Her pace rose and fell, demonstrating clear cardiovascular effort and physical ability that contradicted her claims of being unable to participate in normal physical activity. She remained on the treadmill for more than 30 minutes, never once showing signs of chronic, debilitating pain. Judge Judy's commentary was cool and matter-of-fact. Week 4, Ms. Jenkins. 30 minutes on the treadmill, including jogging intervals. For someone who says walking 10 feet is excruciating, you seem remarkably capable here. Then the third clip began, time-stamped from week 8. This footage showed Deborah not only using cardio machines but carrying 2 25-pound dumbbells across the gym floor. She walked from the weight rack to a bench press area distance of at least 40 feet without any visible difficulty. There was no struggle, no hesitation, no sign of someone who supposedly required special accommodations or adaptive equipment. She set the weights down, adjusted the bench, and completed multiple sets of exercises. The audience's murmurs grew louder, a mixture of shock and outrage. Spreading through the room, Deborah sat frozen. The arrogance she had displayed earlier was gone, replaced by the dawning realization that her entire scheme was unraveling in front of a national audience. Judge Judy leaned forward, eyes fixed on Deborah like a predator sensing victory. "But Ms. Jenkins," she said, "my favorite clip is this last one. This is from the day you claim you were injured, the day you say the equipment made your already difficult life unbearable. Let's take a look, shall we?" The final clip played. Deborah walked into the gym that morning, the time stamp clearly visible. She moved through her usual routine, using multiple machines over the course of about an hour. She used the elliptical, the treadmill, weight machines, and free weights, completing what appeared to be a full workout. At no point was there an accident, a sudden reaction of pain, or any indication that equipment had malfunctioned. She finished her workout, wiped down the equipment, and then walked to a bench near the entrance. And then Judge Judy said, her voice laced with contempt, "We see something very interesting. You sit on that bench for approximately 3 minutes. You look around. you appear to be thinking. And then, Ms. Jenkins, you suddenly remember to act hurt. The footage showed precisely what she described. Deborah sitting calmly, surveying the gym and then abruptly shifting her demeanor into one of exaggerated distress. She suddenly began clutching her back, grimacing in supposed pain, and stood up with exaggerated slowness. She limped toward the front desk, performing obvious distress as she spoke animatedly to the staff member. But the cameras had already captured the truth. There had been no accident, no sudden pain, no incident during her workout at all. She had simply completed her normal routine and then decided it was time to begin her act. The courtroom broke into chaos. Audience members voiced their disgust openly. Gerald Thompson's expression was a mix of vindication and simmering anger. His lawyer nodded vigorously. This was exactly what they had known all along. But finally, Judge Judy's courtroom was exposing it plainly. Deborah tried to defend herself, her voice a strained, frantic squeak. That footage is taken out of context. I was pushing through pain because I'm a fighter. You don't know what it's like to suffer in silence. Judge, this is fat-shaming. This is discrimination. But even she could hear how hollow the words sounded. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage had revealed the truth she was desperately trying to bury. Judge Judy raised her hand, gently silencing her. "Oh, we're just getting started, Ms. Jenkins," she continued, her voice ice-cold. "Because after watching that security footage, I became curious. So I did what any thorough judge does in the age of social media. I looked you up online. And Ms. Jenkins, you have been very busy on Facebook and Instagram. Would you like to tell the court about your hiking adventures? Or shall I?" Deborah's face drained of all color. Her mouth opened and closed without producing sound. The self-assured woman who had walked into the courtroom earlier had vanished, replaced by someone who suddenly realized every lie she had constructed was about to collapse on national television. Judge Judy lifted a stack of printed social media posts, each one more damning than the last. "Let's begin with this post from 2 weeks ago," she said, holding up a printout. "A picture of you at a state park, clearly at the end of a hiking trail, with the caption, 5-mile trail conquered. Never give up. Fitness journey." She let the silence hang. 5 miles, Ms. Jenkins. That's not 10 feet. That's more than 26,000 feet. For someone who claims they can't walk across a room, you seem to be conquering mountain trails without much difficulty. The courtroom was no longer murmuring. The audience was openly furious. Their outrage filled the air. Deborah's lawyer looked like he wished the floor would swallow him. Deborah herself said nothing. The fight had drained from her completely. She was trapped, and Judge Judy wasn't finished. She lifted another printed post, her voice gaining strength with each revelation. "Here's another gem from a month ago, a video of you dancing at what looks like a wedding reception. Your caption reads, 'Danced all night. My feet are killing me, but so worth it,' followed by a dancing emoji, Ms. Jenkins. People whose feet hurt from dancing all night," Judge Judy said sharply, "are not people who are physically incapable of standing for more than 5 minutes, which is exactly what your disability claim states." The courtroom monitors displayed the Facebook post showing Deborah dancing in a dress, without mobility aids, without hesitation, and without any sign of the debilitating conditions she claimed made normal life impossible. Judge Judy pressed on. 6 weeks ago, you checked in at a trampoline park with your nieces. A trampoline park, Ms. Jenkins. She didn't pause before adding, "And 3 months ago, you posted about completing your first 5K run. Your own caption reads, 'Completed my first 5,000 today. Slow and steady, but I finished. Proud of me,' complete with a flexing muscle emoji." The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable, and devastating. Every post contradicted her sworn disability claims. Every photo showed a woman living an active, physically capable life. Every caption revealed someone who was nowhere near as limited as she had represented in legal documents, medical forms. And her sworn testimony. Deborah was crying now, not the rehearsed tears she used to manipulate people, but tears of real panic as 15 years of deception collapsed in front of her. Judge Judy reached for another document. This one stamped with government seals. Ms. Jenkins, I have also reviewed your disability claim file. According to the Social Security Administration, you have received disability payments for 15 years, totaling more than $180,000. Your claim specifically states that you cannot stand for more than 5 minutes at a time, cannot lift more than 5 pounds, cannot walk more than 50 feet without assistance, and require a wheelchair for any distance. Over 100 feet, she tapped the papers for emphasis. Every single one of those claims has been proven false by your own gym security footage and by your own social media posts. You are not disabled, Ms. Jenkins. You are a fraud. The word hung in the air like a verdict. Deborah tried one last, desperate defense, her voice cracking. I can explain. Those posts don't show the whole story. I have good days and bad days. You're attacking me, but her excuses held no weight anymore. The evidence spoke louder than anything she could attempt to argue. Judge Judy's face remained stone-like. I've reviewed your history, Ms. Jenkins. In the last 15 years, you filed 14 lawsuits claiming injury or discrimination. Every single one follows the same pattern. You target a small business owner who cannot afford a legal battle. You make exaggerated claims. You threaten their reputation. And 7 of those cases were settled because it was cheaper for them to pay you than to fight you. You've collected over $180,000 in fraudulent disability payments. Judge Judy said sharply, all while living a physically active life you hide only when it benefits your schemes. You are not a victim, Ms. Jenkins. You are a predator. You weaponize your weight and fabricated disabilities to extort money from decent people. You've discovered that pretending to be discriminated against is easier than earning an honest living. Well, Ms. Jenkins, your fraud ends today in my courtroom. Deborah had fully unraveled, sobbing uncontrollably, mascara streaking down her face. Your Honor, please, I need that disability money to survive. I can't work. No one will hire me. This isn't fair. You're attacking me? She attempted to stand, stumbling in what was clearly one last attempt to appear disabled. But any illusion collapsed under the weight of the evidence shown moments earlier. Judge Judy did not soften. Fair? You want to talk about fair? She shot back. Gerald Thompson works 70 hours a week to keep his gym running. He survived a pandemic that wiped out 40% of his business. He's 68 years old and should be thinking about retirement. But instead, he's here defending himself against your fraud because you decided his gym was your next victim. You tried to destroy his life with lies. You've spent 15 years destroying lives with lies. The only unfair thing here is that you managed to get away with this as long as you did. Her ruling came swiftly and decisively. Ms. Jenkins, not only are you receiving nothing from Mr. Thompson, but you are ordered to pay him $20,000 in damages, $8,000 for the legal fees you forced him to spend defending against your false claims, and $12,000 for attempted fraud, emotional distress, and harm to his business reputation. She wasn't finished. Furthermore, I am forwarding this entire case, including all video evidence and social media records, to the State Disability Fraud Investigation Unit. They will be very interested in reviewing your claim history. You may be facing criminal charges, and you will likely be required to repay every cent of the $180,000 you obtained over 15 years. The gavel struck with a resounding finality, you walked into my courtroom calling me rude while attempting to commit fraud on camera. Here is your $20,000 reality check, Ms. Jenkins. Case dismissed. Get out." The courtroom erupted in applause. Gerald Thompson openly wept in relief. 3 decades of hard work vindicated in a single afternoon. Deborah was escorted out, still sobbing, her fabricated world collapsing around her within 24 hours. The courtroom clip had amassed 15 million views. Hashtags like #KarenGetsKarma and #2OK reality check trended globally. News outlets ran with headlines such as, "Judge Judy exposes 15-year disability." Fraud. Deborah's social media pages were flooded with comments before she deleted them entirely, but screenshots circulated relentlessly. The consequences arrived quickly. The State Disability Fraud Unit launched an official investigation within 48 hours. Federal authorities became involved due to the amount of money in question. Deborah now faced the possibility of up to 10 years in prison and fines reaching $250,000. She was ordered to repay the full $180,000 in fraudulent disability benefits, in addition to the $20,000 judgment owed to Gerald. But she had no assets. Her home went into foreclosure. When she attempted to file for bankruptcy, the petition was denied because her debts were the result of fraud. 6 other business owners she had previously coerced into settlements came forward, encouraged by Judge Judy's exposure of her long-standing pattern. The community she had intimidated for years finally saw justice. For 15 years, Deborah Jenkins had mastered the art of professional victimhood. She had exploited her weight, fabricated disabilities, and society's genuine compassion for people facing real hardships. She learned how to manipulate a system meant to support vulnerable individuals, turning goodwill into profit and sympathy into a shield for her schemes. But she made one fatal mistake. She assumed that calling Judge Judy rude while actively committing fraud would work the same way it had everywhere else. Instead, her $20,000 stunt transformed into a $200,000 catastrophe that destroyed the entire life she had constructed on deceit. All because she walked into a courtroom where truth outweighed manipulation. If you believe Judge Judy delivered the justice Deborah deserved, hit the like button and comment "Justice served" below. Subscribe to catch more moments where professional victims face consequences. Share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that fraud has real repercussions. In Judge Judy's courtroom, the victim card doesn't work. Only truth prevails, and Deborah Jenkins learned that lesson in the most expensive way possible. Her arrogance cost her everything. And thanks to Judge Judy, the world watched every moment of her well-earned downfall.